warm welcome to a Podful of Saints on Thursday, the 17th of August, 2023. We're up to episode number 6 with this one. With myself, David Tavener, the ever-smiling over there, man behind the controls, Jake Ellacott.
Dave Lee. I mean, it's quite worrying that we're already up to number 6 and we're only, 2 weeks into the season. That doesn't bode well.
And the other side of St Albans, the man who's off to see a proper sport tomorrow, cricket. Good evening, Lee Wood.
It's just not cricket, David. Good evening, fellas. How are we? I've not seen you in about 10 hours. I take it. You obviously got home okay. Havant is long way away. I mean, that is bandit country at the best of times anyway, but my God.
When Jake's bringing us back, Lee, it seems even longer, doesn't it?
That's a given. That's a given.
For those of you who are unaware, there were closures on the M25 last night, so we were at the hands of Jake, being the youngest. He knows how to use these little machines, and he took us down some lovely single track roads.
But fellas, I mean, what's the point of having M25 if they're just going to sort of shut half of it at intermittent stages? I mean, what is the point? Don't we just love a rural country road when buses and coaches are trying to get down? It's fun and games.
It's ridiculous. You got something there and it doesn't work. Just nothing happened at all, which brings us nicely onto our performance at Yeovil Town last Saturday, really, doesn't it? Now, unfortunately, neither of you could be there. God, you were the lucky ones. You were the lucky ones. Oh, yeah, we wanted to say before we start, Ian Anderson last week, he's run to say thanks to everybody who's been in touch, inside the club and outside the club. People haven't seen for years, saying how much they enjoyed the podcast, how professional it was. He's thanking you too.
Whoa. Hang on a minute. Time out. People from inside the club like the podcast.
Yes. Shocking, isn't it? Shocking. Next, the club will be promoting it, won't they? No, we'll be saying. Right, we've got to get on with this one.
Might be away games, mate, first. That'd be a good stuff.
It's a good start, isn't it? Do we know we had a game last night? Right, last Saturday, down to Somerset. I know you two couldn't make it, but so you'll have seen the highlights, I guess. You missed nothing. Nobody said in his post-match wanted to take the sting out of the game, which you can understand. You've got a crowd of 3,500 down there. You think they're going to be right behind them. They're going to be at our faces straight away. But look at it another way. Yeovil lost their opening game. They've just been relegated. If you get at them, you get an early goal. Crikey, that lot's soon going to be on their backs. But we didn't do it. We literally did try to take the sting out of it. Michael Johnson standing there with his foot on the ball, and we were a goal down in 3 minutes. But our mindset was set. We weren't going to come out to play. I'd love to have seen us have a go at Yeovil because I don't think they were that good a side. But we didn't. We just passed across the line. More often than not, we passed back to Michael Johnson, and we were never going to save that game. I know we got level. Lovely ball by Dylan Farge over the top. Mitchell Vice beat the keeper to it. Will Buse went through. Lovely goal. But it was so rare. And you just think, looking at that, if we'd got at them more, we could have got not just a point, we could have got all 3 out of that game. But from where we were, and I was in amongst all our supporters, we had nothing down the left. Dylan, apart from that, had a really poor game. But come on to praise him in a minute for something else last night. And also behind him, Sam Brown was just so negative. So we had nothing down that flank. And I'm sure we're a better side than we look. You couldn't tell if we were good or bad because we didn't go out to play. And the supporters all around were vouch for it. And the bench was on the far side. But had not been, and the dugout been on this side, they would have heard the criticism from the supporters. The supporters' support, if you like, vocal support throughout, was magnificent. The vocal, you couldn't hear the Yeovil fans. They must have had somewhere in the crowd of 3,500, but we couldn't hear them. Ellacott were brilliant. But along with that, they were frustrated at what they were watching from us. And they let the players know that they weren't happy with it. Yeah, they clapped them at the end and whatnot, but that's it. They're supporters. I don't know what feedback you two got from it, on what you got from the highlights.
I think the highlights they only sort of paint a certain picture, don't they? And, well, Jake and I both spoke to quite a few of the lads that went down. They said it was poor. Just didn't really get out of sort of first gear, really. And there didn't seem to be a lot of urgency. I mean, I can't talk too much about the game, obviously, because I've only seen what they've put out on YouTube. But one thing I will say, I spoke at length to a couple of their fans, and one of them who does their podcast. I was on there last week doing a bit of moonlighting. I spoke to him again on Sunday. He contacted me on Sunday morning, and he said you guys were the instigators of your own downfall, really. I mean, there was no real cutting edge for you. But the one thing I will say about St Albans is the Yeovil fans probably won't see a better team in terms of passing the ball this season. That's good because, that's the way Nobby wants us to play. It's not a lot of good if we can't have any penetration in the final third of the field. He also complimented our fans. He thought they were superb. One thing he did say is that we've got some really good footballers. And the issue with Yeovil is that it's very one or the other. Half of their fans think they're going to walk the league. With the amount of money they've got at their disposal, the crowd behind them, partisan, etc., etc. The other half, I think, is probably more justified in so much that they are going to find this a rude awakening if they don't back up the ideas, because they probably got away with one in terms of a result. Did we deserve anything out of it? Umming and ahhing. But the thing is, though, Tavs, we're playing well in spells, but we're not playing long enough.
The passing game, Lee, I totally agree. Support Nobby with a passing game, yeah, but it's got to be forward, backwards and sideways. I don't know how many times the back line and the goalkeeper touching the ball, but it'd be a ridiculously high number. That's not a passing game. That's just killing time and boring the pants off everybody. A passing game is going forward. I'll tell you what, who did look like a breath of fresh air on Saturday when he came off the bench, George Hoddle, on loan to us from Cambridge United. It reminded me in some ways of a player we had on loan from him last season. I can't remember his name now, Lee. And he went forward. He could score goals as well. Whether George is going to get goals as well, I don't know. But it's encouraging to see the way he went forward. What did you pick up from people and elsewhere, Jake?
Yeah, similar to Lee, really. So I had another Yeovil fan contact me and sort of say, you guys played some really good football at times, but just couldn't have that cutting edge. And I think it's nice to hear the compliments, isn't it, after we lose? But I suspect we might not have heard them if we'd snuck an undeserved victory. I think the disappointing thing for me, Davey said, that Nobby's talked about taking the sting out of the game. I would never question Nobby. I think he's done a brilliant job. But for me, Yeovil were going into that game on the back of a poor defeat against Hemel. They didn't really show much in that game. And I think we almost presented them with the opportunity to get themselves onto the front foot on Saturday early on. And I think once they took that in front of 3,000 fans at Huish Park, it was always going to be a struggle for the Saints, even though they've got themselves back into it. So I think I would have liked, a bit like the Havant game, which we'll talk about, it would have been great to see us go at them from the start early on and just attack at them, because that is where our real threats come from, is running at teams at full pace. We're great at keeping the ball, brilliant, but we've got players that can take advantage of those situations. And I think that is the real disappointing thing to me. I think if we'd gone there and really pushed ourselves at Yeovil, I think we possibly could have got something from the game.
Yeah, we went into the game with one change because Zane Banton got that injury against Weymouth on the opening day. He's now on crutches at the moment. I don't know if either of you spoke to him last night. I didn't, but hopefully it's not as serious as it looked. And that allowed Andronicus Giorgio to come into a starting lineup. But again, like everybody else, it just wasn't really noticeable because, like Lee said, we didn't have a threat in the final third. Well, we didn't get the ball up far enough that often. But the few times we did, you could see they were vulnerable. And we've mentioned it already. Had we got them at them early, they would have been quite unsteady, I think. But hopefully it's a lesson learned. It's similar to how we played against Oxford City in the playoff final. We couldn't change it when it was going against us then. Maybe we did change it Saturday. We got level, but I think it flattered us. And I hope it is lesson learned. So when we come on to talking about last night's game, we'll have a different view on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should praise, like you, Dave, you already have all the fans that went down there on Saturday. I know a lot of them enjoyed Yeovil Town Centre, if you can say that, from the reviews we've received from our supporters. But it's brilliant support down there, and it's brilliant to hear how well they supported the boys, even if the display wasn't brilliant. I think we should also praise Mitchell Weiss. He's the man that's been getting a bit of flack for Sean not starting, but he took his goal really well, didn't he, on Saturday? So, and it's good to see him getting on the score sheet this season. I think his display so far, I think it's probably one of his better starts to the season for us. And that's really good, especially when there's a lot of pressure on him.
Can I just say, sorry to interrupt, do you generally think that Mitch is getting flack? Because the thing is, there is a conversation to be had here, and I know this is going to be drawn out, and it's been drawn out for far too long, and people are sort of questioning the fact that we're still talking about it. I mean, it's a big thing because it's a big thing. You know, our striker from last year, the last 2 years, is now on the bench. I don't want Mitch to be made a scapegoat, because the thing is, he's doing a really fantastic job. And I'd like to think that our supporters are quite sort of astute enough to recognise the fact that it's not a case of Mitch or Sean. I think, you know, we will come on to last night, but I think Mitch's shortcomings are that he's very, you know, susceptible to injury. You know, he's becoming more and more fragile. To be fair, he puts his body around, so that is always going to happen. But I'd like to think he's not getting as much flack because he's not Sean Jeffers. Two completely different players who offer different positives. If that is the case, then, you know, it is unfortunate, because Mitch has done nothing wrong. You know, his performances up top have been, you know, good. You know, he's been told to do a job, and he's done it to the best of his ability. The channels that he runs and the routes that he gets, and the positions he gets into, are outstanding. But the thing is, he shouldn't be subject to flack because he's not Sean Jeffers. Sean came on last night, and we were no more or less ineffective if it was Mitch, because of just the way we played and the circumstance we found ourselves in at the game at that time. So, I would say, fans, lay off Mitch. It's not his fault. You know, he's been asked to play for Albans City, and at the minute, I'm glad he's doing so.
It's funny you say about criticism from Mitch, because I wasn't aware of any. I've not heard any at the ground, but then nobody speaks to me anyway. And I'm not on social media, so I don't see the message board. I don't see Twitter and all those, Facebook and all those sort of things. So I wasn't aware he's receiving any criticism. Not more. What's more, I think he's been one of our better players so far this season. I think he's got off to a really good start. One goal, fine. It's difficult for somebody to get a lot of goals with the way we play. But I think he's made a good start, and it's very sad he got injured last night. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Would you join in, Jake, on the Mitchell Rice debate?
I think we covered it well. I think I say well said, Dave. And I think Mitch is doing a good job for us up front. And I think one complaint as well, I think, from a couple of fans on Saturday, I think, was, again, I know we keep mentioning it, we're going to keep covering it this season. Why did Sean come on so late when we were 2-1 down? And I do understand that as a travelling fan who's travelled a long way. I think to see Sean come on in, 82nd, 84th minute, somewhere around there.
Later.
Sean, even later then. See Sean come on that late. I think a few of the away fans were just a bit not annoyed, but just a bit peeved that, you know, putting all that effort, all that money, and then your star striker is on the bench for that when you're chasing game. But is that a case of Nobby just sort of flexing his muscles and sort of letting him, because there's no productivity to bringing someone like that on so late, especially when we're chasing the game for most of it.
Ian Anderson got lucky in the FA Cup home to Sudbury last season, where George Merrill came off the bench and got a goal within a few seconds of coming on. His only goal for the first team so far. But it is so rare that a player coming on that late can have any influence on the result. It is pointless in my making a substitute, and they do it to play down the clock to waste time. But we were chasing that game against Sudbury, of course, and we were chasing the game Saturday when he brought him on. It's far too late. It's putting ridiculous demands on that player.
Absolutely.
On to better things.
On to better things. Tuesday nights, and Albans City were away to
Wednesday,
Havant and Waterlooville.
Wednesday.
Didn't we go Tuesday?
We were there, mate. Well, we might have started off going out on Tuesday. We didn't get there until Wednesday.
Right. So going from a club that we played 9 times and never beaten them down to Havant and Waterlooville, we've won our 3 previous visits, or most recent visits, to Westleigh Park, and we made it 4 in a row, and 3 games played for Havant and Waterlooville now, and there's still a big fat 0 in the points column. What a difference our performance. If we got it, Havant, I thought from the start, and Mitch had a shot in the first few minutes to keep it parried in, got it, and we looked really lively. Oh, if only we'd done that at Yeovil, I think we'd have had the same positive outcome in that first half. We'd have got a goal. Anyway, that's where I saw it from where I was standing. I'll pass it over to you two there because you were there for this one.
I thought it was outstanding. The first half in particular was the best football I've seen us play this season, all 3 games of it. But I thought it was absolutely majestic the way we were moving the ball and we're looking positive with it. You know, players with their heads up in the middle of the park. And, you know, just the movement was second to none. And you can see why Nobby's brought in sort of the players he has done. They interacted superbly well. I think it's just so reinvigorating to see our players attacking like in the way they did and in the numbers that they did. They weren't flustered. Havant are absolute bully boys, and they tried everything to kick and, you know, taunt and all that sort of stuff. Our boys, and they were having none of it. Our play was quick. It was slick, and at times it was, you know, it was absolutely outstanding to watch. Capped off with Farge's fantastic opening goal. You know, the technique, the movement from Mitch to sort of take the defender out of the way, amazing. And fair play, because although the second half they come at us and we knew it was going to happen, the one thing I took away from that is even when we were under pressure, we kept at our roots, we kept playing football. And okay, it was a detriment to the fact that it just put more pressure on us, but we played our way out of it. And I think that's what Nobby's trying to implement. And he did it successfully last night. The one thing I would say is that we've got the players to do that now. You know, they were really pressuring us and they were getting the ball out wide, and all they had to sort of show for it was crosses into the box, as dangerous as what they are, but they weren't exactly, you know, shots through on goal. Players weren't having clear-cut chances. So that's good. The players we've got, 1-2 passing, and then we're away in attack. And you spoke about Hoddle there. He last night was my man of the match because every ball he wanted to play was a positive one. It was always forward and to feet. You know, we've got, in my opinion, some of the best midfielders in the entire division. And there's no point having them there if you're going to bypass them, playing a bit more directly over the top into channels. It was outstanding for me. And I thought, although it was tight and they could have drawn level, I thought we were good value for the 3 points overall during the 98 minutes of that game.
High praise indeed there from Lee. Can you match it, Jake? Was your evening that good?
Absolutely. I think especially the first half, it was really, really good football. Like Lee says, I think it's probably the best we've played all season. First half hour especially, until Mitch went off injured. We were causing them constant problems. And I think what was great, we've praised him already, but Mitch's running behind the Havant defence constantly caused them so many problems. And he just worked so well. I was worried before the game, and we talked about it, Lee, that without Ryan Blackman in there, who adds a little bit of steel, we were worried about what Havant could do to us because we know they're a big, strong physical side. But the football we played first half just showed they couldn't keep up with us at all in that midfield area, and that worked really well. Second half, somewhat less so, but then, like Lee said, most of the threat for Havant was actually in the wing areas out wide when they were just constantly trying to ping crosses in. But really, yeah, really well played first half. That finish from Fage, absolutely superb. Watching it back again on Twitter earlier, absolutely brilliant. What a finish, and great setup as well from Rasula.
I haven't seen it yet on video, but seeing it live, it was a fantastic goal. And having criticised Dylan Farge for his performance Saturday, I want to praise him for last night. First half in particular, I don't like the step over stuff he does, and it didn't fool any defenders, but that's up to him. But he looked a threat. He looked a genuine threat going forward. And if nobody can get him playing that way and keep bringing the best out of him, we've got a good little player there. Let's hope so. Anyway, Lee said, I think we've got the best midfield in the league. I think that might be a little bit generous, but certainly last night when they were in attack mode, they look all the better for it, and that's the way to go forward. You said about Blackman injured. It's funny actually. I saw him before the game, stand by the side of the pitch. I said, "You injured, Ryan?" I must have fallen asleep during the second half Saturday because he went off after an hour with an injury. I forgot all about it. He said he could have played yesterday with an injection, painkiller, or whatever, but I just didn't think it's worth potentially making the situation worse with another whack on it so early in the season. So it's sensible, and it allowed George Hoddle to start and put in a very attacking performance. So we probably won't see Ryan again until about November.
We spoke to a few players, didn't we, before the game last night, Jacob? We spoke to Dylan Berry, spoke to Devontae and Ryan. We had a good old sort of chit chat. Yeah, the thing with Ryan is that he was on the end of a horrendous tackle and his ankle was sort of swollen, and it was just one of those. He could have played last night, but then aggravated it, and he's out for a bit longer. So just a precautionary. But the thing is, I thought Ben Smith played well last night, and Hoddle played well, and you've got this strength in depth now, haven't you? Where you're not too concerned if someone like the caliber of Ryan Blackman does not make it, because we've got others who can step in, seamlessly just step in. And I thought collectively, I didn't say, I said we had some of the best midfielders. And I think as a group, they excel even more because the hard work last night, to a man, they put in a damn good shift. And the fans who did travel down were extremely grateful for that. So they should be proud of themselves because that's, despite the fact they've got nil point for all the money that they have spent, Havant isn't going to be an easy place to go for anyone and get something. And we had to work hard for it, and we certainly did that.
I agree with you two what you said about the first half. I thought going forward, we did look very good. We did create things. Maybe Russ Warner didn't have that many saves to make, but that's the way of the modern game nowadays, isn't it? For all the pressure you have, the keeper doesn't have that many saves to make. But what he did, he dealt with very well. Excellent double save in the second half, wasn't it?
Jesus, that
all
was
being well.
It?
That a bit of a start of this. Yeah, that was good. But the second half, I thought they should have got a point. They had so much possession, and it was in our half. It wasn't around the halfway line. It was in our half. But what let them down? We saw it early on. The first few minutes, they had a free kick, good position, and the bloke kicked it straight off. What a pillock! And they did it time and again. Their final ball was so poor. They denied themselves a lot of good chances. And if they could have got that right, then us getting all 3 points would have been a bit more dodgy. But you can see they've got enough in that side to get themselves out of trouble. But they certainly do need to start being a bit more lethal in the final third of the pitch.
It's a stark contrast, though, fellas, isn't it? Because the thing is, we were criticising the fact that we have so much possession sometimes, we do nothing with it, which is exactly what Havant were doing on Wednesday night. They had lots of the ball, but I just don't feel, Johnson came and sort of, gathered them at a second attempt. There were a few of those floating around, but on the whole, we look solid enough, and I think the way we are playing now under David Noble, 1-2 touches, and we're instantly on the attack. And I think that is the outlet that he wants us to have. He wants to be playing from the back, but play at pace as well, and we can soak up pressure. It's almost sort of like lure them into a full sense, and then we're away again. There will be times when we come unstuck, and we will be losing the ball on those occasions in our own half. But they had a lot of possession, Havant, and they did nothing with it. The fact is, goals are currency at this level, right? And goals win games. And you only got to look. We broke away an excellent ball by Bobby Dunn on the flank, crossed it in. Rasulo come in, breakaway goal, if you like, but it was quality. We broke out with pace, quality ball in, quality header, goal. It's simple, isn't it?
A few seconds earlier, Dan Bowery, our captain now, put a cross in from the other flank. It's a whipped low one. It's the sort of thing which John, his name's Sean, isn't it? Sean Jeffers normally feeds off and sticks away. He couldn't get on the end of that one. But you put a few more balls in like that, and Sean will start scoring again if he's on the pitch. But as you say, the ball from Bobby Dunn, what a cross. And to the back post, I suppose they were probably watching Sean more than anything. So Rasulo came in at the back post, a lovely header off the other side of the bar. Jake, your views on it, on the second half and whatnot, and particularly that goal, wonderful, wasn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely superb goal. I think I say Barry's crossing looked dangerous enough, but when we saw Dunn hit that, all of us were like, "This is dangerous. This has got a chance now." And I expected Sean to be there at that back post, but instead it was Rasulo, and it was a brilliant header as well, crashing off the bar, almost a perfect way to win a difficult away game on a Wednesday night, miles away from home. It was absolutely superb. But yeah, like you say, we talked about on the way home, didn't we? That we talked about the pressure haven't had, but then we thought, how many saves did Michael Johnson actually make during that spell of pressure? Not really any that particularly stuck out. I'm sure watching back there'll be a couple, but he didn't make any spectacular saves that you would expect when you've got a team knocking on your door. And talk about the other end, that double save from Ross Warner, Dave, that you mentioned. I mean, that's that was possibly one of the best saves I've seen in real life at this standard of football. It was absolutely superb. I don't know how either of those two shots didn't go in. And at that time, we should have made it 2-1 then as well. So it's funny, isn't it? You think about all that pressure, haven't had. Yeah, it was Ross Warner who came in for a certain Dylan Berry that made an absolutely brilliant double save. So it's a funny old game, but I wasn't too upset about winning it in that style. It was very enjoyable. But it was good to see us withstand a bit of pressure from Havant. You know, they did come out second half. They played well second half, but I say they just couldn't find that. And I think the defence again, positives coming from the defence. They stood up well. And also that last 10 minutes with Bowery suddenly charging down that right-hand wing, didn't he? You just wondered if the Saints, it just felt like, are we going to start going through this? And it worked out that it did in the end.
It's funny, I think with about a quarter of an hour left, even though having so much pressure in our half, having so much possession, I just felt they weren't going to score. They didn't look like scoring then. I don't know if they run out of steam or whatever and conviction, but we were looking pretty comfortable then, despite being pressed deep. And yeah, I think we all went home quite happy.
Yeah,
Eventually.
Yeah, we eventually got home. Although we weren't the latest. We know a couple of Saints fans got home about 2 a.m. in the end. So, but I think to be fair, you know, Sean came on very early on in the game and he did okay. But you just wonder again if Mitch stayed on for that whole game, running in behind. You know, it's all ifs and buts, isn't it? But that first half hour, we can take so many positives from that. And Dave, you mentioned didn't feel like they were going to score towards the end. What was good as well, even though we had to defend for half hour, we were still able to exploit that space in the last 15 minutes, and we started stringing passes again together, and the pressure built up to a point where we eventually got that goal.
Well, you popped in the name of Sean in there sometime. I think it's the first time tonight we've mentioned him. He had more than an hour on the pitch last night, which is beyond his wildest dreams at the moment. But I suppose really the only chance away wasn't on the end of it would have been Bowery's low cross to him. The rest of the game, there was nothing really in the box that he normally feeds off, that sort of play. And so most of his work was outside the box, and it was chasing defenders. And unfortunately, most of the time, it seemed to be fouling defenders. And he got picked up a few times for it, got a booking. His booking on Saturday was a ridiculous decision, should never have been booked for that. And I don't think he really did himself any justice, unfortunately, because we've all got faith in him. We know if a chance to do it, he's going to stick them away. I don't know what the answer is. If we have to change to fit him in now to get the maximum out of him, or he has to amend in some way. I don't know. I don't know if you two got any thoughts on it.
You can see he was dropping deeper and deeper to collect the ball, wasn't he? Last night, I think even the good players, even the Sean Jeffersons of this world, need a few games to get themselves acclimatised to a new season. He's been very unfortunate in the amount of game time he has got prior to last night. I mean, I think the only way we see Sean regularly is if there's an injury to Mitch, God forbid. But, you know, I think that's where it is. I don't think there's going to be a situation like Ian alluded to on last week's pod where the two play together. I think that's where Sean can benefit a lot more. But that's not going to happen because I spoke to Simon Martin last week. I sort of collared him at the cricket club. And I asked him, because, you know, Saints legendary striker, and he was sort of quite divisive about it because it's like, well, you got to do what's best, the balance for the team. But ultimately, goals win you games, and Mitchell won't score the sort of goals that Sean can and vice versa. But I think what we have seen is that with the midfielders and the attacking force that we now offer with these new signings, there might be an outlet there for us to sort of compensate for that a little bit more. It is a thing, but the thing is, Jeffers, he puts himself about a bit now. You know, he's playing for his place, and that's. I think we're now going to see a different mindset from Sean because he's never had to sort of do that in the past. It's quite evident that Nobby doesn't see him as a starting player for us, but I think it's quite disrespectful for him to sort of be coming on with 4 or 5 minutes left of the game. That said, it's different. We don't want to sort of change the balance just for one player, and I think that's very important for us to sort of look at that, and hopefully we can get a balance with Sean in it at some point as well, because we're going to need him going forward. You know, Mitch isn't going to stay fit for the entire season, so and if it's Sean or another striker sort of come in or whoever, but that's the situation we find ourselves in currently.
if Sean's not going to be getting the goals this season, you look at that squad last season, nobody else got into double figures, but already after 3 games, we've got 2 players on 2 goals. So that is a sign for optimism, and that gives other teams something to worry about now more than Sean Jeffers. They got other potential threats in our side who could get goals. It's got to be a good thing.
Absolutely. And I think, as we said, that winning goal, I think part of it came from Havant were trying to mark Sean in the box, to be honest. Looking the photos back on Twitter that the photographer took that was behind our goal, you can see Gio's almost snuck in unmarked behind 2 defenders who are probably worrying about the main man in front of them, Sean. So in that, it works as well, doesn't it? And I think last night as well, what was noticeable, like you mentioned that, Dave, Sean was certainly attracting a lot of attention of defenders, either being fouled or fouling them. But that did allow space out wide for the other players, and especially Ben Wyatt on that left, who once he started to get going, I think probably about 20 minutes in, it's his first appearance of the season, and it's great to see him there. He managed to create a bit more space on that left. And I think part of that is because the defenders were starting to worry about Sean a little bit more. So there's positives and negatives of both, isn't there, with Sean and Mitch, etc. And last night, it wasn't the perfect Sean Jeffers performance. I say he didn't get much of the ball in the box, but we managed to win with him on the pitch. That can still happen, even if he's not getting a lot of chances. And you have to remember, there was a lot of games last season when he was starting, he'd maybe get 1 chance a game. He'd often put that away, but he also had games where he didn't put chances away. So, but we still won. Remember Bath away last season? He missed a couple of chances, but we still won. So it's a fine balancing act, isn't it? But I think, we saw the Saints supporters last night. I think everyone, whoever's playing, I think is happy to just support Sean. If it is Sean or Mitch, just get behind them.
It's good to see Ben Wyatt back out there as well. And of course, you'll be pleased as well, Lee. Just before half time, Bobby Dunn came on for Andronicus. He's certainly got a bit of attitude about him, hasn't he?
Love him. Man crush, mate. Absolutely. All day long. Beast of a fella. But the thing is, I think, he's such a good footballer. There's no mucking around. He's a genuine God's honest footballer. And I think he's a perfect foil for someone, shall I say, probably a bit more creative, like your Hoddles and Blackmans, etc. But the thing is, he does the good stuff exceptionally well. And I'm pleased because he, talked about flack. He wasn't getting flack, but there was a few eyebrows raised about, his signing and that. Not for me. I mean, he's a perfect person. Sometimes we're going to need someone with a little bit of arsehole in the middle of the park. And quite frankly, he offers that, but he offers so much more. And I thought everyone to a man last night played their part in what was quite fresh. It was a very good, hard-fought win.
You say earlier about the strength of the squad. Of course, we picked up those 3 knocks on Wednesday, and Ryan Blackman hopes to be back. Zane Banton definitely won't be back. So already the squad is being tested. Nathan Carlisle was dropped on Wednesday, and Raul de Silva, another central defender, hasn't got in yet. But you don't see a lot of other midfielders due to step into the breach now. If that lot are injured and don't make it Saturday, hopefully they will.
Yeah, I think, but then I wouldn't have any qualms with Bobby Dunn or Ben Wyatt starting on Saturday.
No,
to be
definitely.
honest, myself, I think both of them did themselves great on Wednesday night. Both played well, and to be honest, I also, if Sean has to start on Saturday, so be it. We know what Torquay are like; they're going to be difficult. We'll get onto them in a minute. But I think all 3 that came on Wednesday night, they gave decent account of themselves, especially Ben and Bobby. And I think both of them could pose real threats to Torquay, especially down that left. But I think as well for Bobby, it's brilliant because he's not naturally or necessarily a wide player, isn't he? Unlike Andronicus, who we know does get quite wide at times, then cuts in. So I thought Bobby fit in really well, considering he's almost at times a more central player. It worked really well.
But we spoke about this in the car, didn't we, fellas, about how the players interchanged, and it was really, really good now. It's not as though, I think that Noble wants them to play with a freedom, but a clarity within that, and they were interacting and they were sort of changing positions at sort of time and really confusing Havant, because there was, whilst our players changed positions, we still kept our shape. And I think Havant were just sort of going absolute gung-ho towards certainly last 15 minutes. And we were restricting them to crosses. But we still attacked with the shape and the purpose in which our tactics, were there for. So it was really, really good to watch. And I think over the course of time, that'll develop and that'll progress and that'll improve. So good things, positive things going forward.
Well, it's funny you say play with freedom, because on Saturday, that's one thing we didn't see. It was totally regimented. You got this, you got to give it to him. We've got to keep it all the time. And it was so regimented, and it was crying out for an individual spark. One word that's frequently came up amongst supporters, there was a lack of zip in his side. It was pedestrian. And that all changed on Tuesday in that first half in particular. So, as I said it earlier, I hope it's a case of lesson learned.
Absolutely. And I think, let's not take anything away from the lads, 6 points from the first 3 games, given that we talked about, didn't we, before the game, it's a difficult start we've got to this campaign. I'm very happy to have 6 points at this stage already. We've got difficult games coming up. We've got difficult run coming up as well. So to get points on the boards, happy days.
Well, it's funny, Yeovil didn't look as good as one expected. Weymouth probably looked better in the end than expected. They only need fine tweaking, I think, and they've sorted themselves out, but they got ground to make up now. And coming on the back of it, of one win in 16 at the end of last season, they do need to turn things around. Now, Torquay United, they got whopped at home. They haven't made the start one would have expected. Is this the time we actually get a good result against them? We've had it in the League Cup. It'd be nice to do it in the proper game as well, in the league. Do you fancy our chances?
I fancied our chances the last time, but then found ourselves 10-0, sort of 1-0 down after sort of 10 seconds. I think this is the time to play them, in so much that we're off the back of a good win. I think their struggle to acclimatise to this division is ongoing. I think they've got some good players, without a doubt. That doesn't always translate into 3 points, though. We're going to be hard to beat. We've said this before, and without wanting to sort of sound wise after the event, I can see us getting something from Torquay, because the fact is, I think they've got a complex similar to Yeovil in so much that they thought they were just going to turn up and, win games. I'm sure that isn't, but the supporters, they've been here before, they've done it before. But we are a different beast this time around, and I reckon we're going to give them a damn good game on Saturday.
No former Saints in their squad that I can see, but there's some familiar names from this level, including Bradley Ash, who Michael Johnson will remember, because he saved his penalty when we played down at Weymouth earlier this year. Something that MJ is rather good at, is saving penalties, of course. The Torquay, would they be happy with a point? Having won in midweek, they may now feel they're on their way, but again, they're still rebuilding their way after relegation. So they might be a bit tentative.
I think that's the only concern of mine is going into Saturday. Is just they've come off of a reasonable result midweek, a fairly late winner. But having said that, things aren't all happy down there at Plainmoor. A lot of fans aren't particularly happy with Gary Johnson at the minute with the start of the season. I think similar to Yeovil, probably, a lot of their fan base thought, just like last time, that they could win this league fairly comfortably in the end. So it's, that is one thing. And they've got a lot of injury problems as well. You say you look through their squad. I mean, the amount of players they've got in that squad with like Football League experience, it's unbelievable, frankly. And experience at this level as well, Dave. The likes of Brad Ash, etc. Jarvis, Dean Moxey. Like, some of those names are Football League names, but they've got injury issues. They've got players that they've got doubts over at the moment. So it's going to be interesting to see what team they put out. And just going into it, I think we've just got to play. We've already talked about it a few times, Stephen. We've got to play with that freedom, haven't we? Not be scared of them. Don't be worried about it. Go at them like we did at Havant first half, and I'm sure we could create chances.
Dean Moxey, he must be about 50 now, isn't he? Because he was a teammate with David Noble in the Exeter side. I mean, he's got to be knocking on. Asa Hall as well, who's, I believe, is still their club captain. I watched him when he was at Luton, coming through. So yes, good players, but aging good players. And I think the one thing what we've got to sort of counterbalance that is a young, exciting, fresh, quick side. So I mean, it's going to be a great game. If you're thinking about coming down, make that decision. Come down, support the boys. It's going to be a fantastic atmosphere. Torquay will travel in numbers, and we're going to need the Saints fans on those terraces to come and give us a hand.
Dean Moxey is a sprightly 37, Lee.
Oh, wow. He looks good for it, I've got to say. Fair play. Fair play. He must have been about 10 then when he was playing for Exeter.
Yeah, of course, Nobby was playing it even later, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Wow. And Nobby played under Torquay's manager, Gary Johnson, at Bristol City as well, didn't he? So I was watching Gary Johnson's pre-match press conference earlier, and he was talking about that he's expecting a bit of a battle, and he expects Nobby to be very keen to get one over his former manager. So that'll be interesting. But like Lee says, I think it'll be a really good atmosphere and a really good crowd on Saturday. Torquay probably bring a good couple of hundred. It's not segregated, so it's nice, relaxed atmosphere as well. And it should be a good home support as well. So I think it should be a really good atmosphere. And make sure you get down there because the weather looks good. And I think it'll be really enjoyable, whatever happens.
A couple of hundred. I think it'll be a few more from Devon and that. And yeah, it should be a cracking atmosphere. You're dead right. So once you've had your pre-match meal in that restaurant in the corner, come down and enjoy the game.
That's not a bad gig, you know. I mean, I know we were sort of talking about this last night. It's not the worst thing the club have come up with in terms of ideas. So, you know, if we want to, we could do like a live pod from Verdi's and then get Nocky or Barry Skillett to walk us over to Clarence Park. And yeah, it's all going to be good.
Talking of Barry Skillett, Ian Allenson rang earlier this week, spoke to him, and Barry was one of the people he wanted to thank for his kind words about the podcast and Ian being on it last week. And another person who rang because of that podcast was Graham McDougall. You might remember, our former commercial director, back in the mid to late 1990s. I think he designed this beautiful shirt, and as you can see, they fit everybody like a glove. And I think it's a monstrosity, but there you go. Thanks, Graham. Thanks for your call.
Is that his? Is that why it's so big?
I didn't say that. Do you want his number, Graham? I've got it here.
Graham's fine. How you doing, Graham? Nice to see you again, mate. All good.
Have we got a predict for Torquay then?
Yeah, go for it. I went for a 3-1 win last night, by the way, so it was pretty close.
Yeah, I'm going to
go on, Jake.
First one of the season, 2-1 Saints.
See, this is what happened. I had a message this morning from my favourite professor, Professor Colkin, said, right, Lee, come on, mate. When it comes to predictions, Weymouth was 2-1. Yeovil was 2-1. Havant was 2-1. Prediction for Saturday, and I said 4-0 Torquay, but Jake's just absolutely nicked my score. So I'm going to go 3-1. Why not? The mighty Saints. Let's have it.
I think it's going to be an open game, even 2-2.
Ooh, I like that. Either way, goals in it. Goals.
Exactly. Yeah, we've all gone for goals, haven't we? Good. Okay. So we're right, and it's a cracking day, as Jake says. It's supposed to be a nice day after tomorrow's been a bit of a washout. So we should all have a good time.
All right. Well, if you have anything you want to tweet us or send us, it's at Podful of Saints on Twitter. You can email us as well. And I suppose that's probably us for the week now, unless Dave or Lee have anything else you want to mention before we go.
I think we said plenty.
Cracking company I had in the car last night. Cracking company.
Who were they then? Because you were absolutely rinsing us for like 2 hours there and 8 hours back. So it was. What time did you get home, Taz? Must have been at least 1 o'clock, mate.
1:45, weren't too bad. I had
Okay.
a stray black cat sitting at the back door. The badger wanted feeding as well, so they're all waiting for me. There we go.
On that note, we will see you again next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
We got a badger.